Delayed gratification is something that we've got to begin teaching early on in early childhood education. Learning to take turns. Learning to say no. It's the old adage that grandmother used. Eat your vegetables before you eat your dessert. Do you remember those days when people cared about how we even ate and the fact that they ate with us? And sit up. Straighten up. You don't do that in a table. You don't interrupt adults when they're speaking. You take turns. These are the values that a community must have if a community is to remain a civil society. Delayed gratification. I had a teacher tell me in one of my courses recently that he teaches music, and it was the end of the band period, and a little girl, I guess, I don't know what grade she was in, first, and she got mad because he told her no at the end of class, two of them, she and her friend. So one of them, he said it was time to line up. She said, no, I want to still play for a few more minutes. He said, I'm sorry, it's time to line up. And she took her recorder and threw it on the floor. And then her friend, now isn't this cute, ran to the restroom and began profusely crying and moaning and wailing because she was told she couldn't play her recorder any longer. She had to get in line. That manipulative behavior was tolerated somewhere else before it ever got to the classroom. Are you with me? I'm talking about delayed gratification is a part of it. Taking responsibility. Teaching responsibility. And as a community of faith, we need to be aware that schools cannot do all of this. Our society has dumped literally every problem on public school. Take the kids, straighten them out, and do the best you can, and by the way, good luck. We need a partnership of home, a partnership of community institutions like churches and Sunday schools and 4-H club and scouts. We need it all. Lawrence Kohlberg said that children do not do what they are told, they are doing what they see. And when children are undisciplined, and when they are disrespectful, and they are not called on it, and they are not taught differently by their parents, I have to assume that their parents accept that as acceptable behavior because they do it themselves. We have a generation that has forgotten our moral core and values of civility and respect and taking responsibility. And then there's the dedication to truth. These are all things that we are supposed to learn somewhere early in the home or in Sunday school or somewhere along the line. It was hard on the farm. I'm not nostalgic about those days. My grandparents and great-grandparents worked hard. But when they were working, there was an aunt or an uncle or somebody involved or a grandmother in the house to keep the kids, help keep the kids in line. If you remember what I'm talking about, you've heard of it. You've lived through it. Taking responsibility is big work. And I'm calling us to look at our lives and ask ourselves the question, am I part of the problem or am I part of the solution? In order for children to turn out right, they require our attention from birth on. And being a parent or being a teacher is more than showing up in the room. It's giving our attention. Saying, no, we don't do that. You need to say, please, thank you. The basic civilities. It's that little nurture, catching it, and remember the expression, nipping it in the bud? dealing with it before it becomes a major problem. There's a lot of discussion about what's wrong with our schools. It was a cover story of last New York Times magazine last week. It was a cover story last week of Newsweek magazine. And then there's the local stuff going on. There's a whole concern about what's going on in our schools. I'm saying to us this morning that if we are going to change our children, we ourselves must change, and we must take responsibility not just for ourselves and others and for our own, but even for others. Whether it's in the form of volunteering or becoming involved with children, whatever it is, it pays off. These Proverbs, and I do not have time to go through them all this morning, but I encourage you to take this leaflet home with you and look at the Proverbs that we've read. This is just a small section of wisdom out of the book of Proverbs. How many kids and people do we know that think quick, get-rich-quick schemes are okay, or it's okay to lie? The Bernie Madoffs of, is that how you say his name? The Bernie Madoffs of our culture, who ripped off people, was once a child in somebody's kindergarten class. He must have been in the bathroom sometime when they were teaching lessons about telling the truth and being honest. Or they were not taught. I'm saying to us this morning that Christ calls us to be responsible. There's a story in the Gospel of Matthew which teaches us that when we are given talents, we are responsible for those talents. And to whom much is given, much is required. And in order to have the moral authority and integrity to require responsibility of others, I've got to be responsible. I can't just expect children to pick up after themselves if I don't do that. I can't expect children to be readers if I'm not a reader. I can't expect children to tell the truth if I don't tell the truth. I can't expect children to do anything unless I'm willing to do it. And so, the grace of knowing that again we begin thinking about taking responsibility and the moral imperativeness of it all, the seriousness. And if we are truly concerned about the future, let us take care of today. Amen.